I'd like to bring this meeting to order. The Village of Villa Park Board of Trustees meeting, December 18th, 2023. Clerk Benecchi, please call the roll.
Trustee Alfano?
Here.
Trustee Cordova?
Here.
Trustee Corkery?
Here.
Trustee Kozar?
Here.
Trustee Kumar? Trustee Patrick?
Here.
President Kazone?
Here, if we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together this evening. May we have meaningful discussions that will help us to assist our village in these trying times. Help us to make the decisions that will affect the staff, directors, and residents of Villa Park. Guide us through the challenges we face, and may we approach each other with respect and kindness as one group. In your name, amen. We go to item 3, public comments on agenda items. Clerk Benecchi, anyone signed up?
I have no one signed up.
Anyone in the audience, agenda items? Okay, public comments on non-agenda items? No one? Anyone in the audience? Okay. Item 5, amendments to the agenda. Do we have any amendments we'd like to see? Okay, seeing none. No proclamations, and we have no presentations. Go to item 8 is our consent agenda. Is approval of the minutes from December 11th, 2023 Committee of the Whole and the Village Board of Trustee meetings. And 8B is a bill listing for the week of December 11th, 2023 for a total amount of $828,334.71. Do we have a motion for the consent agenda?
I'll make
Trust-
that motion.
Trustee Corkery, do you have a second? Trustee Cordova? Questions or comments? Seeing none, Clerk Benecchi, please.
Trustee Patrick?
Yes.
Trustee Alfano?
Yes.
Trustee Corkery?
Yes.
Trustee Kozar?
Yes.
Trustee Kumar?
Yes.
Trustee Cordova?
Yes.
President Kazone?
Yes. Okay, item 9, we have no appointments to commissions. Item 10 is an ordinance for a first reading. It's an ordinance amending section 3-313A of the Municipal Code of the Village of Villa Park to increase the maximum number of licenses permitted under the Class AA liquor license. And this is for the business at 212 South Villa. You want to say anything? Andrew.
Basically, the ordinance increases by one the total number of liquor licenses, as mentioned. This one's for 212 South Villa to sell retail alcoholic liquors. The board reviewed this proposal at the meeting on December 11th, 2023. Staff recommends approval of the ordinance presented tonight for first reading.
Thank you.
It's not a recommendation on whether you should waive
Yeah.
first reading.
No, yeah, that's, okay. Comments? Trustee Patrick?
Thank you. Mr. President, I've had a few residents just asking me generally about the liquor license permitting process. Could you just explain briefly what the process is if a business or an entity would like to obtain a liquor license, what that process looks like?
Sure. First step is they'll come to the village and they'll apply for the license. They have to go through a background check, a police check. Goes to the police department. It's a $500 fee. And then once the background check is approved, then it comes to the board for approval. It used to be where they would just apply for it, come here. However, as we've gotten more and more of them coming up for approval, we've taken it to where the board will now, well, I recommend when someone asks me for a liquor license, because as being the commissioner, I will recommend to bring in front of the board their plans or what they're looking for just before they go through the background check and pay the $500 fee to see if there's consensus from the board for a business that they would, that once the license comes here for approval, that we would approve it. So it's basically kind of like a two-step process.
Generally speaking, then, outside of the background check and whether or not that's approved, is there anything that prohibits anybody from applying for that? For example, is there anything that would prohibit, like, let's say, a plumbing business from getting a liquor license?
I spoke to someone today about that too. Probably not. If, say, a plumbing business wanted to have a liquor license, there had to be a reason for it. You know, we'd like to see what the plan would be, first off. And then second would be, is it a permitted use in that district?
Okay.
If not, then it would have to go to zoning for, for approval. Like, we can, our village attorney can maybe expound on that a little bit more.
No, I'm just trying to get some clarifying questions. So basically then, if said entity, plumbing business wanted to apply, they would come to you first. And at that point, then you would look at their original plans to see whether or not it fits for the plan of Villa Park or not, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure. Did I say any more?
And just to add, the liquor licenses that are available and as dictated by the code will basically dictate what kind of businesses can apply for a liquor license. So their license, most of the licenses are for the retail sale of alcoholic liquor, and some require the serving of food with it, some require, other things, if they sell packaged items, so the business would have to qualify for that
They'd have
type of
certain
liquor
check-
license,
Okay.
correct?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, and there have been some comments on some of the businesses that have come to us for licenses, and I've had a few that, we get a lot of requests for gaming, just strictly gaming facilities, and I think the residents have said we've got enough of those, and I think the board has kind of agreed with that, we don't need a lot, we don't need any more, just strictly gaming. If someone wants to come in and put a restaurant and have some gaming on the side, I think the board looks at that as a favorable, business, yeah.
Thank you for
Trustee Kumar.
clarifying.
And so is there a liquor license that does not include gaming?
Yes.
Yeah. And
We have
is
a
that
Quad
one-
E,
A Quad E.
yes.
My concern is this particular, and I really love their model and what they're trying to do there, but this particular model is feasible. It looks like mainly on weekends and Fridays is what they're going to have business going on. And the problem with the double A is it does give an incentive for any business to put in gaming as a substitute income during the weekdays. So that is not necessarily, we don't want that to become their main source of income. I would prefer a quadruple E for this particular business to avoid basically that sort of activity to occur, only because we already have a lot of gaming in town. And there are negative externalities with too much gaming. We don't want Villa Park to be the next Vegas Strip necessarily. And it is easy money, if you can't make your business, turn enough profit. So it's the first place that maybe any business that might have problems will turn to, given that they have that option. So I would be more favorable for a quadruple E for this particular business, given what the presentation was. I am not against, I really love the idea, the activities and so on and so forth. Has anybody reached out to for the possibility of any other type of liquor license?
No,
No.
not to this point, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trustee Alfano.
I would have to agree with trustee Kumar with the concern about that gaming being associated with the AA liquor license. And also, I do have some questions regarding that Villa Avenue location, not just with the gaming, but also with parking and with that, the 50-person occupancy. And I don't know if that went to zoning, if that was an issue, if that's part of this. I don't want to say yes or no when we haven't seen that big picture yet and it
Yeah.
hasn't gone through that whole process.
Okay, Director McLaughlin would probably have some answers to your questions.
Yeah, so they're in for a building permit. It has been issued and they're constructing right now. The use that they're requesting is allowed. It's a non-conforming parking status, but the use itself is allowed. They can operate the way they are. They're asking for the double A because of their business model. If you remember in the presentation, it is restaurant style, serve, bar, and they also have the bottle shop component. The double A, it has the ability to consume and retail. The quad E does not. Additionally, they have never presented that they want to do gaming at all, nor do they have a spot allocated for it on their floor plan. So the gaming conversation kind of, it doesn't blend in with everything they're doing, which is why they asked for that particular license. They could not do what they want to do with the quad E, because that does not allow retail package.
Trustee Alfano.
Could you explain further the non-conforming parking status that you mentioned?
Yeah, so if this was a new building, ground up, they'd have to provide whatever the equation is, number of parking stalls per square footage. But considering it's a non-conforming historic building, 0 lot line, there's 1 parking stall on site, and they get the 1 parking stall in front of them that is theirs, similar to other businesses on Villa that they have the 1 for themselves. So it's non-conforming. We do not prohibit businesses from moving in and out of buildings based on a parking. It's non-conforming.
Trustee Kumar.
I have a question about, as I said, my fear is that, yes, they haven't, are you saying that there is not really an ability in that particular spot from your professional opinion of putting in any gaming?
That is not on their site plan that we've issued building permits for. Because remember, the gaming has specific rules and regulations on where it can and cannot go. The site plan, the floor plan that we've issued permits on does not account for that area.
Okay, so what would be required for them to put in gaming?
So I think I've said this before, but we have to be okay that if someone has a liquor license, that they can go to the state eventually someday and get it. That's just part of the Illinois business model. It's built into there. But as they presented, that is not part of their scenario. They're not open every day. This isn't a regular bar or tavern or even the quote-unquote gaming cafe. That's not what they're doing. I mean, if we are afraid of that, I don't know how much more economic development I can do on new restaurants. I mean, this is already a tough conversation.
Right.
On a weekly basis, we get I want to open a gaming cafe. And we are very clear, as President Kazan said, you better have something associated with it. Because if it's just gaming, the board will vote no. Yeah, sorry, well.
Just a quick question, though. So the plan does not have gaming. If they want gaming, they were more than likely going to have to remodel, which they would have to come in for a permit, correct?
Yeah, I don't know where they would fit it in the current way that they have it laid out, with the bar centered, with the restaurant, and then they have an office tucked away, which is normally where it is. That's actually an office, and then there's a restroom in the back, so everything else is completely open
Yeah. Okay.
for their dining.
Trustee Patrick.
So my question was just clarifying,
Yeah.
is that even though a liquor license is issued and the business plan of that business is one way, but a year or two down the road, if their business plan changes, there's nothing that really can prohibit us other than possibly if they do a remodel, revoking a permit. Is that correct?
Correct, and then you have, with liquor licenses, their annual renewals. So
Okay.
you get every year, you get to look at it if you really wanted to.
Okay.
But obviously, we've been at the point where if you have it, you keep doing it, but there is an annual review and an annual renewal as part of the process.
Thank you.
Just goes there.
You mentioned something about non-conforming with parking.
Yeah.
So if you're moving into an old building that's existing, you don't have a parking requirement?
You do have a parking requirement. There's actually a calculation based on that you cannot require more parking that has already been permitted on that lot. It is, so if they were going to remove a stall, we would prohibit that permit or that demolition. You cannot reduce the number of parking stalls allowed on that property, but you can move in, and if they were doing a remodel to increase, we would obviously look favorable on that. But you can move back and forth with the existing parking required, but cannot reduce it.
And somewhere on the books, every property has existing parking, the number of parking that it has?
Yeah, and we usually do that on the fly through historical aerial photography to make sure nothing's been lost, because there isn't a tracker of it.
But it would have to be actual, like, stalls. right?
Yeah, parking spaces, yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to relate my business at 324 East Central.
Mhm.
Didn't have parking, and I had to go through all sorts of hoops.
Yeah.
Right, but
Yeah, as we,
it didn't have parking before, and it doesn't have parking now. What's the difference? So those were just kind of unnecessary hoops at the time?
as we discussed, that was a previous administration. You went through
Right.
some stuff.
I just want to see
Yeah.
some continuity. I mean,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I don't have a problem if they move in there with no parking, but let's make that fair for everybody.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. That is what, that is how we're operating now.
Trustee Kumar.
That being said, there's still an issue that if you have 50 people come into a place and they have no parking. And as a village, we have to consider that. Even if we give them legal status to build, what are we going to do with all those
That's-
cars?
Right,
So
so,
what is our process to solve the issue?
don't equate occupancy with the number of parking required. They are not the same. So because they have a 50 occupancy does not mean there will be 50 vehicles. That's not how parking is calculated.
No, I'm not saying that I equate that. I'm just saying that practically speaking, if they're having a party on Saturday and they have 50 people and they have, let's say, 20 vehicles or 15 vehicles and people are dropped in Uber, you still have to have place for 15 and they've got one.
Yes.
Yeah, one
So-
is not equal to 15.
So
you know.
our zoning ordinance is very favorable to existing/historic, which is the language they use, buildings. They want to keep and preserve. And so there are non-conforming abilities in the zoning ordinance. The use is allowed in its current configuration, and the idea is public on-street parking lots.
Which I understand. I mean, we want to help this business survive and we want to, this is not even from the question of should I stop this, this is as a village, what are we doing for parking?
Sure, so if you also
Yeah,
recall, we have issued, and we are getting the draft back of the parking study for Villa Avenue and Ardmore, which will have a significant amount of data in there representing how much parking is actually being utilized versus I can't find a spot because it's not the spot I want. You're going to find that we have more than enough parking for that particular area, and that without, giving away signage is going to be our answer, to tell people where the actual parking is located when they're driving around the block. But it's not drafted and it's still there. So but
And then a lot of
that's what's
people,
gonna happen.
they just don't want to park
Yeah.
a block away. They
Yeah.
want to park in front.
Yep.
Right.
So,
Okay.
but again, we're talking about a liquor license here, and they can do
Right.
everything that we're talking about right now is allowed by right. The license is the only thing that's not.
Correct, yeah, and this is strictly on the liquor license.
Yeah.
Trustee Alfano.
So as we are looking at building this Villa Avenue corridor, and we have our study, which I'm not sure exactly where we are with that. I haven't heard an update on that. We also are looking at the rec center. We're looking at another development in this area.
Yep.
We're looking also at a parking lot that's across the street from the park there by the Prairie Path. That is, I believe, a village parking lot. It is not labeled as such. We have people who park there and they use it for residential parking basically on a daily and overnight basis. I don't think there's overnight parking there. I think that these are also things to address as we are looking at adding more businesses. And we're talking about this parking when we have a historic building where that only has one parking stall.
Yeah.
And we want to add signs to here's where we can park, then let's make sure that those signs are there now so that people can get out of the habit of using.
So yeah, the
not.
idea was to have the document that told us best practice on where those should go based on our actual, what's happening in the field right now. So we're waiting for that. We are in the final drafts of that particular document. It should probably be available in January for board presentation, which the consultant will come and do the full-blown presentation on those two particular areas. And then we can go in through the new budget you guys are going to approve. There's TIF funding for signage to do all that. So like I get the thing so I can do the next thing so that we can keep going. So, and signage for pedestrians and vehicles is TIF eligible expense.
Trustee Kumar.
I honestly want all the businesses, including this one, to survive, do well, and you do not want parking to become an issue because it does affect who will come to a particular business. And I really understand we're trying to go away, trying to become more pedestrian friendly. We're trying to get away from the car culture, but it is built in the United States pretty much in most people, and they want to park as close as possible, as we all know. And one possibility that we should probably discuss in the future is for these kind of historical sites, if there is a way to require some valet services on days of, activities, because then you kind of take that issue of I parked in the wrong place, I don't care, I won't come all the way, and like they do in the city in many places. So we need to kind of come up with, I think a plan that way too, in order to address some of these kind of issues.
The model for the captain's room is valet. They are going to use their dedicated spot in front of them for their valet stand. So they can then park
Yeah.
and then,
So that's the main thing, right? So we want, and I figured that's probably what that.
valet is also going to be in the report.
Yeah, so.
Stealing all my thunder.
Okay, anyone else? Anyone else? Okay, we'll bring that back at our first meeting in January for approval.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, go to item 11A, is the second reading of an ordinance approving various amendments to Chapter 3 of the Villa Park Municipal Code related to the number, kind, and classification of liquor licenses and other related regulations. Major Harley.
In August of 2023, staff presented potential changes to the Village Municipal Code as it relates to liquor licensing. This ordinance presented for second reading authorizes various amendments following up on those recommendations to the Villa Park Liquor Code and is consistent with prior board discussions, historical village practice, and Illinois law. Staff recommends approval of the ordinance.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion for the ordinance? Trustee Kumar? Do we have a second? Trustee Corkery? Okay, questions or comments? Trustee Alfano?
I do have a question. I know that when this came up before, I believe that trustee Patrick had an ask to see how our liquor ordinances deviated from state law and wanted some information on that. And I did not know if any of that information had been sent out or had been.
No, the proposal was to get the liquor commission together, and that probably won't be done until, obviously, January. Yep.
That level of analysis to be turned around in
Yeah.
2 or 3 days is probably beyond, it's definitely beyond the capability of the staff as we need dozens more people.
Trustee Kumar?
Is it possible then to move this ordinance to a date certain that is after we get that information? Do we have to approve it as a board today? I would like that information before that, and I understand it may take some time.
Well, so, if I could,
Hang on.
really quickly, the ordinance before you deals with four classes of license for which we have no current owners. The issues that I believe that were being discussed were other things where our code is not exactly the same as staff or state law and may indeed be more strict. I don't know that is we can delay this if you want, but the four classifications that we are looking at and eliminating here are classifications that were recommended months and months ago and by this board.
Over a year ago.
Yeah, and then the other is to create a banquet license, and there is a business that's interested in getting that banquet license, and we would be delaying that while we look at some things that are related but not exactly on point with this particular ordinance.
So the changes that are proposed in this present ordinance are local regulations. So that they have to do with the classification that is solely the decision of this village board and are not comparable to the state law. There are other various regulations in the village code that are similar to state law that recite, and those provisions are what my understanding was the board wanted to see how they differed with respect to the state law, and we'll provide that analysis. But these proposed changes do not change those provisions. These are changes that are totally within the authority of the local control of the village.
Trustee Kumar?
Another thing, like we just talked about the quadruple E, right? Which is one of those things that kind of fit with, we're removing some classifications. I think we need to add certain classifications too. Because as he said, in the quadruple E, you can't serve. Like,
No, you
can't
can't- you
sell
can't
package.
sell package,
So
correct.
we need something that you can sell package and can, sell liquor, but not do gaming, but we don't have anything like that. Is that not possible to have?
Oh,
a
it's possible, and that may be something, it's something that the liquor
classification
commission,
like- yeah.
it's something the liquor commission can look at.
Yeah, I think that classification needs to exist, and so there are things with, that's why I'm kind of like, on the fence about this, nothing.
Yeah, but
else.
this ordinance has nothing to do with that.
I know, but I think we need to
That's
kind of look carefully at
Yeah,
what we.
but I
do.
would rather not, I'd rather just get this, and then we can look at those other issues. Trustee Patrick?
Well, my question is that outside of the one business applying for a banquet license, what's the rush on these? That's my first question. My second question is if the Liquor Commission is going to be meeting in January, I don't think a lot of businesses are going to be, I don't know if this business is going to take off in the next 2 weeks, but I think there's plenty of time for the Liquor Commission to hold that meeting in January and get this information back to us, unless
Yeah,
there's
but-
something pressing for time.
No,
There are existing liquor license holders that are waiting for the approval of the new banquet so they can switch licenses. Because they're holding a tavern license and they want to be banquet, so they're existing.
my
And
follow-up
licenses
question-
are based on the annual,
My follow-up question to you then is, what's 2 weeks?
the next year.
Waiting more time
The
for
next
those businesses?
the next calendar year. Licenses are on the annual.
Okay, so those licenses would then be issued in January then, correct? And being on our same calendar?
And paying for a license that's more expensive that they don't need. And the banquet license is a new license at a lower value because it's a true banquet, not the tavern which they've been operating under.
So
currently.
would it be more probable then to roll that out in January, so that way?
If
you-
they
we
waited
should-
for us, they would not get their state license. They have to get our license to get their state renewal license. So
How
that's
many-
why we're trying to get it done.
How many businesses?
There's 3 that are looking for the banquet license in the beginning of the year.
There's 3 businesses currently looking at the beginning of the year to switch the types of liquor
Between
licenses.
switch and new, 3. We will probably have 3 Ls issued in the first quarter of next year, either in
Okay.
January,
So
February,
then my
or March.
follow-up question then, I guess, comes to the village president or liquor commissioner then, is when will this liquor commission meeting happen? And when, for the village attorney, can we have that analysis completed?
the liquor commission will probably meet sometime in January. To get the information to the board would probably be another month at least, I would think. So we're probably looking February to March.
I just
get
want
all
to
that,
make
you know.
sure that we're nailing down a date, because there's been a lot of other things that we've asked for information that still haven't gotten back to us. So this is pretty important moving forward, especially with a comprehensive plan, a new TIF district possibly in the making. These are all decisions, a part of this forward planning and forward thinking that the board have to consider too. So I think this is important information that we need to help us make better decisions.
Trustee Kumar?
I would also like to propose that you relook at some classifications when, as a liquor commission, you meet for that particular classification that I'm talking about, especially where, you can sell packaged. We are getting more specific types of businesses. Now, we don't want to keep them away. At the same time, we do want to protect ourselves as a village, as I said. So, the classification matters.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Clerk Kornicki.
Okay, trustee Cordova,
Yes.
trustee Alfano,
Yes.
okay, trustee Corkery,
Yes.
trustee Patrick.
No.
Trustee Kumar,
No.
trustee Kozar,
I believe I have to recuse myself because
Yes,
I have a
thank you.
liquor license.
yes, thank you, and President Kazone.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so that does pass, and I will try to get a date for you guys within the next week or so, as far as the Liquor Commission. Okay, item 12A is an ordinance levying taxes for the fiscal year of the Village of Villa Park, commencing on the first day of January 2023 and ending the 31st day of December 2023, collectible in 2024. Manager Harley.
Before you is an ordinance setting the tax levy for the property taxes for as assessed as of December 31, 2023. Collection of the revenue will be in calendar year 2024. The village staff, in particular, the finance director, has worked closely with the library to come up with a number that will work for them, will work for the village. This is changed from last week, and Director Howard is here to explain any of the differences and answer any questions. Village staff recommends passage of the ordinance.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion for the ordinance? Trustee Corkery, you have a second? Trustee Cordova? Questions or comments? Trustee Kozar?
B, C, and D, the abatements. Wouldn't the abatements come before passing the levy? Like, don't we need to talk about the abatements first, or is that, because the abatements are saying that we've got enough money to pay the principal and interest, so we don't need to make that part of the levy. Right? And then, once we decide we have enough money and we don't need to, you're getting way out of here.
Oh, no, I was just like.
You're like, oh, I don't want to touch this thing. Then after we have the conversation saying that we don't need the money for principal and interest for 23 for these various bonds, then doesn't make sense to then circle back and say, okay, given all these, then we'll either vote in favor or not in favor of the levy?
So the abatements come after. You have to levy the taxes first, and then thereafter you abate the taxes that were just levied. So there's nothing to abate if you haven't established the tax levy. So that's why that comes first in the order of consideration.
Okay, so in the initial levy that we're voting on now, we're saying that we are going to collect this money for this purpose, and then we're going to come back and say, we're not going to spend that money for that purpose.
Well, yeah, what we're saying is we have an obligation to levy for those general obligation bonds that are on our books. What we're also saying to our taxpayers is we've got a mechanism so we don't have to collect the tax for these by doing this abatement process. So it's there, we're required legally to levy for that. We've got some mechanism that allows us to not levy that amount, if I'm correct in that saying.
Okay. Okay.
Trustee Cordova?
Can you walk us through how it worked out with the library?
We looked at the EAB for the village, and there was a calculation that I wasn't considering. The library had done a calculation. It increased the amount that we had out there so we could accommodate their requests, and for the most part, and then adjust the village to stay within our mandated restrictions.
Trustee Kumar?
I just want to thank you for all those efforts.
Thank
as,
you.
Staff
Yeah, I
work
do-
Together with the library to make things better for everyone.
And one of the things that came forward in my discussion with the library, and something I don't know that's been going on, but I hope to be part of, is to make them an earlier participant in this process. One of the things that we need to know, and the reason why we kind of get further in the year with both levy and with budget is because we're looking at how we're performing in the current year. The more time we have, the more opportunity we have to see, we can see where we are. We want to addressed this a little bit earlier because the library starts before us and they have their structure and their resolution in place, and I can see what their levy is, and we can start talking about these things a little bit earlier.
Trustee Kozar.
So I've said it a few times throughout the year, I think as recently as the last meeting, that I'm not in favor of raising our property taxes anymore. I mean, at all. I want to see our property taxes stay the same, which means that I would vote against the levy. I'm looking at our budget, and we can talk more when we get down to the budget, which is, what, E? But I think we're underestimating some of our revenue, and our revenue starts on page 171 of the packet at 10.40. So utility taxes, we're budgeting that they're actually going to be lower this year, but utilities keep going up, so I just don't see how that would be. Property taxes lower this year, but they, just based on the assessed value, would be going up. Sales taxes, we've got as being a lower number. State income tax being a lower number. There's a number of just different revenue things, and I understand it's important to be conservative, but I think if we look at that, we're going to have more than enough money versus what we're raising property taxes for to offset. So I think that we can safely not vote for the levy and to raise property taxes for all our residents. I think it would put a good signal out there for Villa Park that, you know, in this time of inflation and rising costs, that we're doing what we can to try to keep costs low for our residents. I have, for all the time that I've lived in Villa Park, which I moved here in 1999, I've never seen a levy not pass. I've always seen our taxes go up. And I think that would make Villa Park more attractive if not every year, on occasional years, taxes don't increase. And that would directly put money in everybody's pocket. I think all our residents would be happy if taxes didn't have to go up on their properties. Plenty of other revenue out there. I think we're underestimating the revenue that will come in. So I'm not going to vote to raise the levy. As it relates to the library, they're looking for somewhere in the neighborhood of 100,000. I think that's very doable this year to find another 100,000 for the library within our budget. I mean, from the additional revenue from that will come in that I mentioned on page 171, if you start kind of going down that list, all the way to taking 1 day off of our reserves, which are at 121, down from 210, I believe it was, bring it down to 120 and get the library the money that they need, and at the same time not raising everybody's property taxes anymore for what we can control here in Villa Park. So I'm a definite no on the levy. I hope other members of this board will join me on that.
One of the things as we talk about the levy and the revenues is we don't control costs. One of the things that I'm a conservative accountant and I can be cautionary about it is we're hoping that in our process we have correctly estimated costs. We hope, we don't know. Costs out in the marketplace are rising. We don't know when it's going to end. So I would caution an approach to this year's levy as costs stabilize. Perhaps it's a discussion for a further time, but I think if we don't do this, then we're going to be caught someplace we don't want to be. So I would just in that note, and it's certainly a decision for you all to make, CPI is 6.5%. The maximum we can do is 5 here. So we're going to probably be, in a place where we have to do some analysis in any course without the increase that we're talking about. We are capped.
And the village is obligated to pass a tax levy if you want to collect any
Yes, we do, to
tax.
collect
You have to
any
do this
tax.
annually.
Right, and we must be filed with the county before the last Tuesday, which is next Tuesday of 2023.
So if I could just make sure that that point is made, there is a levy, which means we are going to take in some amount of taxes, and that's what we're talking about here, is that we are going to charge some property taxes this year. If we vote down this ordinance, we do not stop having a tax levy, or we have no property tax collected at all. We would have to come back to this room on a special meeting and come up with a different amount of a tax levy. This is not a levy to increase taxes. This is a levy to, the total amount of taxes increases with property that is new and with the assessment, but the rate that we are charging is not increasing. It's actually decreasing for most of for the part that we have the most control over, which is the property tax that goes to the general fund. So we have to vote on some type of a tax levy.
And property owners will be assessed a tax anyway.
Correct.
Because the municipality is a very small portion
Right.
of the total amount of property taxes. So voting this down would deprive the village from taking its share of the assessed property taxes that property owners would be paying.
So using the word levy to mean increasing the tax levy, as is often done during a vote, is different than what we're talking about doing tonight. Levying taxes also means to simply send out a bill. So if you vote this down, you send out no bill, and we're out $8 million, and the library gets nothing.
And not only that, but we've gone from 180 days reserved to 120 days, my understanding, in the last year or so.
Well, we have collected money, and part of it is in the form of bonds sold but not spent. But the general fund balance is higher than it has been in the past. It's also, at the end of the year, at the end of this year, we're expected to be at, 220 days, which is that amount understands that we're going to have to spend about $3 million towards or about $2 million of general fund money towards the recreation center, and some total for the whole project on Lufkin Park at $700,000. So we know we're going to draw down our general fund. It is, we can always tweak it a little bit. Also, the amounts of revenue projected, yes, those are conservative amounts. The assumption is that, and we're budgeting, the typical way to do is budget versus budget. Some of those projected numbers in the 23 projection are higher than they probably will actually come out, because those projections were taken in September. So if you budget against the projections, then you run the risk of not getting nearly as much money at the end of the year, and then you're budgeting in a comparison to a number that was a prediction, as opposed to budget to budget, which is that we are increasing all of those amounts, I believe. Definitely the sales tax, or the sales tax, and we know that the income tax, or the LGDF, will be up this year. But if you look at those numbers versus the projections, sometimes you'll get a false sense that you'll get more money at the end of the year, because those projections are not always spot on. So that we have to pass something tonight, or come back and come in a special meeting and pass a different tax levy. This does not increase the amount of money that we are asking village residents to pay towards the general fund. I think there's a slight, there is more money, but the tax, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, the library tax levy amount, the rate is going, I can't remember if it's slightly, I think it's slightly down. Yeah, so the rate is going down because we have higher assessed value, and we've got new property. So we cannot increase the total amount collected more than 5%.
And one of the things I always want to say, and I think I said it when I spoke last, is if you look at our levy, the things that we levy for, we've talked about debt, but we also have to talk about the pension plans. Those are a big part of it. If we don't levy these amounts that have been actuarially determined, we are going to fall behind what is mandated by the state to fund those pension plans. So we want to be certainly to those numbers.
Trustee Kumar.
I do understand actuals versus projected, and that you do need to keep more closer with your next budget to actuals versus projected. And I think that's the question, because your projections may have been off, and that's why you use actual data as you go on to actually project your budget. So that makes sense that sometimes it'll be lower, sometimes it'll be higher based on the actuals. I'm personally fine with the levy as is, given the unprecedented amount of inflation we are facing. So we have not seen a budget come back that has been reasonable. Inflation has been pretty high in all our projects. We have a lot of projects we're going into. So I do agree, probably this year would not be the year I would pick to freeze our taxes. Irrespective, but I don't think that actually is even a part of what we're doing here, so that also is another issue.
Okay. Trustee Alfano.
So I am going to ask that we kind of back things up a little bit, because I am very new to this.
Sure.
And we did not have, we were promised a budget workshop that did not come to fruition. So we are looking at this ordinance to pass the levy now, and then B, C, D, and the abating is going against what we're passing now.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, those, once we have passed that, then we can say, okay, we've got funds to, on the debt portion of what we're levying, not collect that amounts because we've got other revenue sources.
Okay. And then, so then E would be where we would be having that, the increase would be in the E in the budget, where we have the budgetary increases in our general fund,
E is
correct?
just the budget, is the actual budget that we're approving.
Yes, but we are spending more in the general fund then, correct?
So A is the actual tax levy,
Yes.
okay? And then B, C, and D are the abatement ordinances. So you've explained that you have a general understanding of that as well.
Okay.
E is the budget, which is the budget for the spending of the village for the upcoming
For
year.
the upcoming year, so we
Okay,
passed that
Based upon the
budget.
taxes collected, how you're going to spend the money for the 2024 year.
Got it.
So the budget is then the overall picture for the village, if we can think of that. We levy for that portion that represents that revenue, and then we pass the budget on the full scope of what we're going to do in 2024.
Good. Trustee Alfano.
One more question for clarity then. So you're saying if we do not pass A, then we wouldn't collect anything that would be owed to us. Is that what I'm
It would
understanding?
not be filed, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And the budget has additional sources of revenue that allow for the village to, expend funds to be able to operate. So the tax levy is one portion of that, one source of
That's
the
one revenue source, right?
Okay.
Right. And although there was a budget workshop, we had that on October 16th. That was,
We were supposed to have something as trustees. I was asked to put time aside on a weekend.
That's a strategic plan.
Oh, we had talked about talking about the budget at that point too.
We were talking about just setting priorities for the future year. We couldn't get a date that we could get everyone together. And so I apologize that didn't come to fruition, but we will be doing that on preparing for the FY25 budget starting on February 24th.
Okay.
Trustee Patrick.
Well, so just really quick, I have a couple of things, just to piggyback off of trustee Alfano, is that I did receive an email from our village manager saying that he wanted to meet with us individually about planning for this year's budget, which that didn't happen. I understand that there was a workshop scheduled on one day, that necessarily wasn't accommodating for everybody's schedules. Second of all, what I'd like to say is that we have a comprehensive plan that's out there right now. Those results are going to be coming in soon, all right? We also have the potential establishment of a new TIF district here in town. There's a lot going on here. Sticking to what we were talking about regarding taxes and levying them, I would like to propose that we host a series of committee of the whole meetings specifically designed around how, with that information that we get, how we could continue to keep our taxes lower or lower them moving forward. I think that's a discussion that needs to be had openly and publicly. I think a general consensus across the board here is that nobody really wants to raise taxes. I don't. Trustee Kozar has said that he doesn't. So I think we need to get on the books some specific dates in the new year after we get these results from a comprehensive plan and some things, and see how we could go about keeping our taxes low or lowering our taxes.
Trustee Kozar.
So you said in this tax levy, that built into the tax levy, the maximum we can ask to increase the total amount of property taxes collected is 5%.
That's our
So
cap.
what if we did the total amount increase of the property tax collected at 0%? I'm not saying 0% of all taxes, but we collect the same amount that we collected last year. And by doing so, that would give a discount to everybody in the village who pays property taxes, essentially, because if we don't do that, everybody's going to have to pay more.
I would say that, again, I think of things, revenue and pricing and expenses. Expenses don't hold steady at least not in this particular time frame. And so we would be at least 6.5% behind, because we wouldn't be keeping somewhat of a pace with inflation. In a flat economic situation, that might be something that would be viable, but, or that would be a recommended course of action, but I wouldn't choose it in this one.
So how would one make the motion, or like, what is it that, what would I need to say that I will vote for the levy, but I don't want the levy to increase? I don't want it to increase any more than it did last year. That's what I've been talking with you about and Manager Harline about several times.
Right. The levy,
You would have to make a motion. Is there a line item, Director Howard, that Trustee Kozar could specify with respect to?
I don't think so. It is,
The tax levy has been established
It's been
based
established.
upon the prior discussions, so you'd have to be identifying which areas you'd be cutting. Would it be out of, police administration? Would it be out of engineering?
I think this conversation would have been helpful the many times that I sat in your office on Saturday and told you that I didn't want taxes to go up. I've sent several communications to our manager saying that this is the first time now that I'm being told that you either vote for the levy or we don't collect any property taxes, and if you don't want our property taxes to increase, you got to go through it line by line and then make a motion and tell me where you want to cut. So that was never my understanding that that's how it needed to be. So, I'm not going to make everybody sit here while I propose a new levy.
yes.
Okay. Trustee Patrick.
So I'm in agreement with Trustee Kozar. However, I am not opposed to holding a special meeting before our deadline, so that way staff or the attorney could investigate this a little bit more and come back with a possible solution. If that solution doesn't work, then we're back to square one at a special meeting where we could vote this one agenda item in.
This is a decision of the board, like, this is not a legal decision with respect to the reducing, where to cut items as to.
I completely understand that, but trustee Kozar has a point here.
Yeah.
Is that, and agreed upon by our finance director, is that there is an option to do what he's talking about. It might not be the best solution right now, and it might sound good to us up here right now, but that's why I'm proposing, if we table this until another date prior to that and have a special meeting with that information presented to us, might help us make a more accurate, informed decision. Again, these conversations have been had prior to, and I don't understand why now this question is just being answered. So, listen, you said it has to be December 30th or?
December 26th.
26th.
And I don't see that happening.
I'm not coming back.
Yeah.
If I could, there's one possible, I don't know if this, Director Howard, the increase of about 5% is somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000, if I recall from the chart. Does that sound about right? We could cut $500,000 from the amount that's going to the general fund, which would mean that we would lose $500,000 off of our essentially, depending upon whatever else comes in, and if as trustee Kozar suggests, that the finance director, myself, Suzanne, and the rest of the staff are that far off, and we're going to do much better, and the expenses aren't off, we may not see that much of a decrease in our general fund balance. $500,000 off the general fund balance would be a significant hit, but we could do that, and I see where the ending balance is supposed to be, and I'm trying to go off memory because I don't have it in front of me, somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 million. We'd still be fine at $9.5 million. I believe that would be it's not a great way to do this, but it would be one way that we could achieve that zero gain, and that the increase in property that you guys have brought about by good practice and economic development, that the additional property, the additional EAV caused by successful economic development would be dispensed with. Then we would basically be trying to push back against the reassessment of the county and not taking that increase as well, but we could come to a number that would be essentially a zero increase and would be the base for next year. So we would be behind, and we would continue to pass that savings on to our citizens. What that also means is that in a couple of years, we're going to be looking, unless things change drastically, at not doing very much when it comes to parks or increases in staff, probably.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and every dollar that we don't take in is a dollar that's not going to be spent on public improvements, so. Trustee Kumar.
I, as anyone else, do not like to pay higher taxes. I understand that. But we are under unprecedented inflationary times. This is a cautionary we have a lot going on in this village at this point. I want to caution against the strategy myself. I do not think in this particular year this is the proper strategy. However, I do agree that we need to consider these strategies in the following years. We cannot continue on the process of increasing taxes. A lot of our people in Villa Park are finding every dollar hard to come by. So it is not a bad idea to have a set of committee of the wholes in seeing where we can curb our expenses, where we can cut our budget. As you already have mentioned, Manager Harline, we are going down next year considerably in the number of days we have in reserve. And we can't keep going, to the general fund, because you're going to hit a point where you don't have enough to keep your staff active. So that's not a good idea either. You need to be a little bit careful with that. So, but we have to think of where we can streamline. What is the first project to cut if we do not have the funds? What we can do, rather than just hit the general fund each time. So I think we need to have these budget discussions a lot earlier, and I think that's part of the problem here.
Trustee Corkery.
I'll agree with Trustee Kumar. I've looked at this budget a lot, but not nearly as much as Mr. Howard and his people. And given we're so close to the deadline, I would like to stick to the recommendations of our professionals on this and sort of stick to the plan, at least going forward into the next year.
Trustee Patrick.
Just to reiterate my point, I don't think it's appropriate for us to be making solutions on the fly at meetings like this, and that is why communication is essential in any kind of organization. Future planning is essential. It's a must. That communication is a must. Therefore, again, I think we need to get on the books a series of committee of the whole meetings designed specifically about this, about next year. How are we going to come up with innovative new ideas for lowering our taxes? Not just keeping them low, but maybe possibly lowering them. What can we do? That gives us a whole year if we start early to make some of these decisions that would benefit our residents. Again, on the fly like this at a meeting a week before something is due is not the appropriate time to be making these decisions. So that's why I'm encouraging that when we get emails about having individual meetings, or when we are supposed to be strategically planning for our future here, that these meetings actually happen, that these public discussions actually happen, and it's just not said once and thrown to the wayside. We have to continue preparing for the future and having these meetings, and that's why, again, I think this would all be hashed out over a series of committee of the whole meetings.
Okay. Trustee Cordova.
This is my first year here, and I had a lot of questions when we went through in November the operating budget, right? We had the police, fire, parks, staff, everyone came up and said, we're asking for X amount of dollars. When we talk about taxes and levying taxes, when we and we talk about numerous opportunities to talk about operating budgets and the budgets, the taxes pay for those, correct? So if we don't increase or keep a steady beat of taxes or levying these taxes, we actually have to say no to the fire chief or no to the police chief. No, we cannot get you those safety things. No, we cannot get you another a police officer on the streets when we're understaffed, right? So like I said, I'm fairly new, but I've asked my questions during these budget things. I got the same emails as everyone else up here, and you know, not for whatever, but I believe that Manager Hardline said, let me know if you would like to meet one-on-one about the budget or anything else tonight, and we can schedule it. I did not have any questions. I did not want to do anything else because I understood I had questions. I did not schedule it. So maybe I'm missing, maybe I'm not reading the right emails, but it's my understanding.
Okay. All right, let's go. Trustee Kumar.
I do understand that, what you are saying, Trustee Cordova, that you didn't wish it, but I think different people have different processes with assessing and understanding budgets. And I think it would be helpful, at least quarterly, to have somewhere quarterly, every quarter, a little bit of a budget discussion in our committee of the whole, not just at one time, because then, okay, we want this at the end of the year. Is this going to be feasible, given this can be discussed a little earlier? And that's kind of what I would suggest. So we stay, it's easier to make a budget as long as you stay on track. And so a quarterly revisit of the budget during a committee of the whole would not be unwarranted, at least for me, certainly.
No. Okay. Trustee Patrick.
So I agree. A budget in general and the whole budgeting process is designed so that way we as a board have the opportunity to tell the police chief or the fire chief, no, we don't need that because of X, Y, and Z. Or we're overspending in this area and not another area. Or finding out that, hey, we've been underspending in this area and we can afford to give the police chief or the fire chief this right here, what they need. That's the whole purpose of the budgeting process and communicating and having these discussions. Right now, our budget, if you ask anybody in the community to take a look at our budget that's posted online, they're going to tell you how extremely difficult it is to read. That's what I've been getting left and right. Now, I don't know how other municipalities do this, because this is the first municipality that I've ever had the opportunity to discuss budgeting. But I have had plenty of opportunity in the corporate world to come up with budgets. Those budgets look nothing like the one that's posted online. Maybe there is a reason that way. But in layman's terms, we have to be able to show our constituents and our residents what these things mean. And if I have difficulty reading some of these budgets or finding things, it's a very difficult process for a resident to have as well. So the whole purpose of budgeting in these discussions is to enhance our operations, is to benefit our residents, to let them know that we are spending in the right areas, or we're cutting back in the right areas. It keeps us on track. So that's the importance of this budgeting talks. And so moving forward, we need to have that. I definitely second what Trustee Kumar and Alfano are saying.
Just Kozar.
So I agree that trying to do this on the fly is not necessarily the best way to do it. And that's why I've been bringing it up for months, all year. But I would like to make a motion to cut the general fund portion of our tax levy by $500,000, and thereby reducing our levy $500,000. If I'm to understand that that's the closest way to try to keep our property taxes, as far as the village can control, at the same level that it was last year.
So it's a motion to amend the ordinance to reduce the general fund by $500,000, is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay, so there's a motion. Do we have a second? Trustee Patrick,
I'll second that.
questions or comments? Okay, Trustee Kumar.
I want to know where that 500,000, other than the general fund, where do you think it's going to come from? Because.
It's gonna come from the general fund.
I know
Yes,
the general
yeah,
fund,
yeah.
but the general fund is a big
Yeah.
pool of money. So where do you think you can streamline out that 500,000? Is what I'd need to know before I'd agree.
Can I answer that?
What's it? Yeah, it's a line item that we just cut the
No,
general
I
fund, but yeah.
understand that I understand where it's gonna come
Yeah.
physically out of the budget.
Yeah.
The thing is, the general fund is a pool of expenditure. We
Like,
have
where
the
is it-
general
where?
fund to cover things like, when this road is not finished, I take money out of the general fund and I finish it.
Right.
When the pool needs a new, springboard, I go to the general fund and I pull that money out. We vote on that constantly. So when you cut out $500,000 out of the general fund, it's gonna come out of somewhere. And where, you need to know where that's allocated. You would not know at this point, because it's allocated
Yeah,
in
we wouldn't
general
know where it's
funds,
gonna,
right?
where
Yeah.
eventually, yeah.
I have an answer.
What's that? Go
So
ahead. Yeah.
the simple answer is, you would just reflect a $500,000 reduction in the general fund balance at the end of the year. To try and go line item by line item at this point would not be a valid, would not be a very good process. And you would have to make dozens of cuts to come up
Okay.
with $500,000. So basically, you would just reflect $500,000 less revenue and end the year with $500,000 less in the general fund balance, and then we would show that in the final document. In terms of the ordinance for the passage of the budget shows expenditure. The part of the budget the state law requires you to pass only has expenditures, so you wouldn't have to change that.
But this is the levy itself.
Correct,
Yeah, right.
correct, but it's going to have an effect on the budget, but it actually won't have effects on the budget ordinance.
Right.
But that's what would happen effectually, is that you would reduce the general fund balance by $500,000 in the final document.
Manager Harline, do you have an identification of where on the tax levy ordinance that $500,000 would be coming from, so we can be specific
Yes.
as to what the village board is voting upon?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
All right, go ahead.
What is our surplus as of this year in our budget, that general fund budget?
well, so there's an estimated amount that we should have at the end of the year. By the way, I would think that it would be section 1, 2, and 3, which are, and wherever $12,180,872 is mentioned, we would reduce that number by $500,000. Would that be correct?
I think that's page 100 on the packet.
Yeah, it's, in the packet, it would be on page, I believe you're right, and then page number.
Just so I'm clear of what we're doing as
98.
far as the levy goes, one thing that also is in place here is not having a levy to abate those ordinances. So that's something that.
Actually, there's only $199,000 going directly to corporate, so we'd have to also cut from like recreation and parks and increase the transfer amount, which would require us to make adjustments in the transfer on the expense side. So it gets a little more complicated than I thought.
Yeah.
Sorry. Just to clarifying, so when we look at this and we're looking at page 100 right here, the 12,180, you're saying that in order for us to find the 500 out of the general fund, these budget line items, which is going to be parks and recreation, maybe firefighters pension, police pension, corporate, fire protection, ambulance paramedics, social security fund, et cetera, those will all come down?
Well, I mean, the ones that would be the safest to take the money out of and without having, setting us off our actuarials that are required by a state law would be essentially $200,000 from corporate, and then enough out of recreation and parks, which would be most of those, to take those down to zero, and then we'd have to increase the transfer from the general fund, which would require an amendment to the budget ordinance as well. But you could do it by doing those three changes.
Trustee Kozar.
Well, those three changes don't represent the actual spending budget that we're going to see in E. Those are just the justifications for what we're taking on the tax levy. So if those three were removed or reduced, that 500,000. To answer Deepa's earlier question, where do we find that money to offset it? If you look on page 171 at 10.40, that whole column, and then go ahead and look at that. I'm scrolling down here because this is such a massive document. But 171, that first column, 10.40 starts with utility taxes. That's all our revenue right there. And if you just jump to the bottom where it says our revenue in 2023 is 20,352,000, that's our estimate, because obviously we've got some days left in December. And then our estimate in 2024, when you count in all the inflation of just even sales tax, you're looking at less revenue coming in, almost $1 million less revenue. So even if we were to take in the same amount as we're projecting to take in today, or in 2023, we would still be $1 million ahead. Subtract that 500,000, we're still $500,000 ahead. What I'm saying is it's doable, and I would have liked to have been led down this road when I first brought these things up, instead of trying to do it right now, absolutely, but This is what I'm given, this is what I'm stuck with, so I'm doing the best I can with what I can work with, trying not to raise taxes for our residents. That's my end goal. We get taxed, every time we turn around, we get taxed. The government makes more money off us than we make off of our own efforts. And this is one way that Villa Park can look at their residents and say, all right, we're not gonna do that to you. This is your money, you keep your money.
So the board is going to have to identify, it's on page 100. Those are the various funds or purposes for which the tax levy money can be spent upon. The board has to identify which of those accounts or tax levy purposes is being reduced by this $500,000. The budget identifies a corporate fund where monies can be reduced. Also, that's item number E. But for purposes of the tax levy, there are only various purposes for which tax levy money can be spent upon. The board, if the board wishes to reduce it, they have to identify which purpose the reduction is coming out.
So a couple of things. There are some errors in assumptions that are being made, and then there are some errors in understanding of what you do and do not approve. The budget that is approved by this board does not get to the detail of trying to decide if you want to compare the September estimate of what the state income tax or the LGDF might come at, and instead of showing a increased budget to budget of about, I have to do the math in my head, but around 3 to 5%, we're going to take an estimate from September, which is probably well above, which is projecting that the taxes will continue to come in at this way, like a continual line. That is not how taxes come in. So there are some flaws in the hundreds of line items as to how that projection actually looks at the end of the year. So if you look at the actuals from, you could look more at the actuals from 22, and maybe we are a bit low, but it doesn't matter. The revenues will be what the revenues are. The revenues aren't even part of the part. I mean, we can adjust that in the exhibit if you want to, but what you adopt in the budget is the expenditures. So what you would have to do is transfer to increase the amount of expenditures in the corporate fund by $500,000 to make up for the lost revenue in Parks and Recreation, and then for the money that would be spent that would not be offset by property. Actually, you'd only have to increase you don't have to increase the amount of expenditure in the general fund for the transfer. These are some pretty complicated budgeting processes that we're trying to explain here, and something that I've done for 25 years. So to try and get to that level of understanding at the trustee level tonight is not a particularly great use of time. We can cut $500,000, identify 3 areas, which would be $199,883 from what would go to the corporate fund from property tax, and we'd have to eliminate all of property tax to parks. I'd have to do that math, and most of the property tax to recreation, and then increase the transfer and therefore the expenditures in the budget when we get to the budget.
Okay.
So that's what we can do if we want to accomplish what you're trying to do. All this stuff about trying to guess as to, without the understanding of exactly what those projected numbers meant, that doesn't make any difference. That's not part of the ordinance.
Okay. All
That
right.
is
So
a
we
document that we
So we have a motion to amend the levy and cut general fund levy by $500,000. Okay.
So
Clerk
do I need to
Konecki.
clarify that and give you the actual line items?
Yes, because there is
Okay.
no general fund identified here. You have to
So
identify
I
the
would-
levy purpose.
So amending that motion. So I make a motion that we strike the corporate amount from the tax levy of $199,883, that we reduce
That's
the,
to zero.
to zero. We reduce the recreation from 180, and we reduce it $152,117, which will leave a balance of $27,883. And that we
So
would,
the levy would be 27,883 for that.
correct. And then lastly, we would reduce the parks down to 27,000 even, which would be a reduction. I think I switched those numbers. It would be a reduction of 148,000.
For a total of $27,000 line item.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Trustee Patrick, do you second that?
Are you pulling from parks or recreation?
Two separate
Both.
line items.
I'm doing both. So 3 line items, corporate, recreation, and parks. Because I think that money can be made up.
I will make that
Elsewhere.
second.
Okay. So we have an amended motion to cut corporate by $199,883, reduce recreation to the amount of $27,883, and reduce the amount of parks to $27,000 even. Okay, Clerk Konecki.
Okay. Trustee Kumar?
Hang on, do we have can we ask a question? I
Yeah,
just want to
sure.
make
Yeah.
so we're cutting the recreation tax levy by 84.5%, and then the parks by 84.57%?
Yeah.
That's what it is? Okay.
Roughly,
All right,
yeah.
that sounds awesome, guys.
Okay, all right. Clerk Konecki.
But it's the
No,
money
I
coming
get
in
it.
from-
This is just a levy. This is not the budget. This is the actual levy.
Are we still on discussion?
Yes. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Again, to my point, strategic planning. I think it's, again, early in the year, we need to get on top of this, so that way next year, we don't have this kind of issue again. So I think it's, I'm going to be adamant about, we need to put these dates on the books soon, tonight preferably.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to have you got February 24th on your calendar?
Well, the thing is with me, I'm all over the place. Usually I'm booked out. I need days ahead of time.
That date's already been sent out like 2 months ago, yeah.
So February 24th is when you're planning on holding the, what meeting is that?
I'll send you the email again.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
a strategic planning meeting, isn't it?
So February 24th is a Saturday, though.
It is.
Right, that's when that went out.
It's a day-long strategic planning that we brought before the board when we brought the CP2 consulting contract.
So what is the meeting going to look like? Is it going to be an open meeting here in the boardroom?
I can give you that
Yeah.
detail.
It'll be an open meeting, though.
Yes, it has to be by law.
Yeah. All right, any other questions? Okay. Clerk Konecki. This is the amended motion to cut the corporate and parks and rec levy.
And guys, I don't know what this is going to do to future years levy and how much we can alter that, but I believe we can get it, we can change the rates in the future years to get some of that money back into those.
Because that will change from next year, because we'll be under a different percentage.
Yep.
Because we won't be able to, yeah. Clerk, Trustee Alfano.
So what you had just said, that it would change the rates for next year?
Correct, yeah, because we can only raise the rate no more than 5%.
Yep.
So if we're levying at less $500,000 this year, that means next year, our basis will be a lot less. So that 5% would be less money. Okay?
So I came in this evening and have been struggling with the budget overall, but also with taxes, as all of us would like to see them not increase. And I am new to this, as Trustee Cordova had mentioned as well. I had spent some hours on the phone with Manager Harline, and I do appreciate the time that he took. It was a later conversation than I would have liked to have had, and I really do appreciate the time and you took to explain all of that. But I guess I was not exactly clear as to some of the questions that I needed to ask, so thank you for taking the time to go through that now. But I am a little more frustrated now than when I walked in, not knowing a lot of the information that I do know now that could have been communicated a lot sooner to me as a trustee. Just as a newer trustee, and maybe even those of you who have been here for a while may have needed to hear some of what I have heard today. And that's just what I needed to. So thank you.
Okay. Clerk Konecki?
Okay, trustee Kumar,
No.
trustee Cordova,
No.
trustee Corkery,
No.
trustee Alfano,
Yes.
trustee Kozar,
Yes.
trustee Patrick,
Yes.
President Kazone.
I'm going to vote no on that. I think this is going to affect our budget for several years if we do that. So we'll keep it at that. So then we'll go back to the original motion for the levying, which was brought up, which has been also discussed. Any other final comments? Clerk Konecki?
Okay, trustee Alfano,
I'm sorry, can you repeat what we're voting on?
We are now voting on the actual ordinance, the original levy.
No.
okay, trustee Corkery,
Yes.
trustee Patrick,
Yes.
trustee Cordova,
Yes.
trustee Kozar,
So my motion before was about a way not to raise our property taxes. If I were to vote no on this now, what I would be saying was that I don't want to collect any taxes. And that just doesn't make sense at this juncture. So reluctantly, I'm going to vote yes.
trustee Kumar,
Yes.
President Kazone.
Yes. Okay, so that's the ordinance on the levy. Okay, item 12B is an ordinance abating the tax hereto levied for the year 2023 to pay the principal of and interest on $3,010,000 general obligation bonds, alternate revenue source, Series 2017 of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois. Manager Hartline.
So, and as part of the annual property tax process, the village routinely abates property tax levy for the debt service when it has certain funds available to pay the debt. Abating the property tax means we are informing the county that we do not need property tax revenues to pay the debt on these bonds, debt service on these bonds. These bonds were issued as part of our plan to manage TIF 3 debt, which is insufficient revenue to cover the increasing debt service payments, although that's not necessarily, it's getting closer to be not true. But all of these debt service payments could be covered by an increase in the tax because it's uncapped because of when the state law, when they passed the state laws regarding your tax levy, they knew that you would have to cover your debt. They knew that you would have to cover pensions. So those things are uncapped. What we are saying here is we don't need that. We're abating that amount and that the tax that you, the debt, the tax levy that you have approved does not raise taxes to cover these 3 general obligation bonds.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have a motion for the ordinance?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Corkery, do we have a second? Trustee Cordova, any questions or comments? Okay, Clerk Konecki, please.
Okay, trustee Patrick,
Yes.
trustee Alfano,
Yes.
trustee Cordova,
Yes.
trustee Corkery,
Yes.
trustee Kozar,
Yes.
trustee Kumar,
Yes.
President Kazone.
Yes. Okay, item 12C is an ordinance abating the tax hereto levied for the year 2023 to pay the principal of and interest on $2,645,000 general obligation alternate bonds, sales tax alternate revenue sources, Series 2018A of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois. Manager Hartline.
Staff recommends passage of this as well to abate property taxes that could be collected for the 2018A stormwater alternative revenue bonds.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a motion for the ordinance. Trustee Cordova, we have a second. Trustee Corkery. Questions or comments? Hey, Clerk Konecki, please.
Trustee Kumar,
Yes.
trustee Patrick,
Yes.
trustee Alfano,
Yes.
Trustee Kozar.
Yes.
Trustee Corkery.
Yes.
Trustee Cordova.
Yes.
President Casone.
Yes. Item 12D is an ordinance abating the tax hereto levied for the year 2023 to pay the principal of and interest on $2,735,000 general obligation alternate bonds, sales tax alternate revenue source, Series 2019A of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois. Mayor Harley.
The enclosed ordinance abates the property tax levy for the 2019 A stormwater alternative revenue bonds as there is sufficient revenue collected to pay for the debt on these bonds. Staff recommends approval of this ordinance.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion for the ordinance. Trustee Corkery, do we have a second? Trustee Alfano? Okay, questions or comments? Trustee Kumar?
Abatement's always good. Just gonna put it out there.
Okay, Clerk Reneke?
Trustee Cordova.
Yes.
Trustee Alfano.
Yes.
Trustee Patrick.
Yes.
Trustee Kumar.
Yes.
Trustee Kozar.
Yes.
Trustee Corkery.
Yes.
President Casone.
Yes. Okay, item 12E is an ordinance adopting a budget for the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, for all corporate purposes in lieu of annual appropriation ordinance for the fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2024, and ending December 31st, 2024. Manager Harlan.
Extensive memo was sent out about this, but basically this is the annual budget being presented for final adoption as our financial plan and expenses and revenues in the year beginning January 1, 2004 and ending December 31, 2024 to 2024. In this budget, you will find also that we have included the cost for the fire engine, which we ordered nearly 2 years ago. The remaining costs on the recreation center, which assumes about $5 million spend this year, a little bit more than that, actually. All funds, actually, it's $12 million spent this year, $5,000 from the building fund, plus the $7 million bond being realized. We have about $300,000 budgeted for Phase 1 engineering for the grade separation in the street improvement fund. We have about $20,000 for tree planting. Some of these specifically were questions that Trustee Kozar asked, and I want to let the rest of the elected officials know, because these are some things that you all brought up, and I think it's important that I repeat his question. We budgeted $250,000 for the Sidewalk 50/50 program, which is up from $150,000 because of the board's advocacy for that. There are additional funds budgeted in some projects, so the actual spend on sidewalks are going to depend upon how far we get with some of those projects, what the costs are in those bids. But there's also $250,000 on top of that for the 50/50 program. There is the general fund balance ending is projected at $10,727,015. This planned decrease from the audited amount of $13,830,422 on December 31, 2022, but certainly more than we had of $8.7 million at the end of 2021. It means we have a healthy corporate fund balance, but it's not excessive. There is no need to build up a huge reserve there because, again, as this board has made abundantly clear, we don't want to collect taxes that we don't need. And I appreciate that, I really do. And I think one of the things we've learned tonight is that one of the things that we need to do as a staff, first of all, one of the problems that we're dealing with is the formation of the budget as it was when we brought it in, has a lot of, it's not the way that Director Howard or I would construct a budget. The tools that we have are somewhat of an impediment, and I think it would do better if we explain not just the expenditure side, which we spent extensive time spending last time, but clearly that is important to give more understanding about the revenue side next year's budgeting process, because the property tax collection system in the state of Illinois is rather complicated. And as we almost found out, I appreciate what you guys are talking about not increasing the total amount collected. But just to reiterate, we were not suggesting a tax rate increase. So the increase in tax that anybody saw would either be taxes from other districts, which we have no control over, or the assessed value, which is also outside of our control, but by the county. Our rate was going down, but that doesn't, but I also understand that the idea is to try and keep property tax low. And then there's some other things that we need to work on in terms of having you guys 100% ready to delve into this. The other thing I would just remind you is that you have a very good staff, and we have gone through this, and what we are presenting to you tonight is a balanced budget that achieves the goals that we understood you wanted. I guess one of the things we did not understand is the additional information, the level of additional information that you guys needed about what is a very complicated concept. I've done this in 3 different states, and Illinois' property tax assessment and their limits are more complicated than Missouri or Delaware by far. But you know, you're in good hands. The budget will accomplish what you want, and you are not increasing the tax rate on your citizens. It's actually going down. So, all right. With that said, are there any other questions about what is or is not in the budget? And I will do my best to find it for you.
Okay, yeah, we have to have a motion first.
Oh, sorry.
Wait, we have a motion for the ordinance. Trustee Kumar, can you have a second? Trustee Alfano, questions? Trustee Kumar.
I think it would be beneficial to say what the average property owner's tax would possibly be, some kind of average, and how it's not increasing, if you want to state that. Get some number out there, because I think that fear is there, obviously, of highly inflated tax rates next year and us paying more. That is one thing. Another thing is, I think also we need to have, in part of our discussion, in our committee of the wholes, a discussion of our tax bill, basic tax bill, how much is actually the village portion, which is a considerably low amount, versus the other taxing entities and stuff like that. A discussion about that would be warranted for everybody to get on the same page. That's not, I know we could all read it and figure it out ourselves, but I think sometimes being told that again and reiterating some of those facts will not hurt.
Well, and I have no problem doing any of that stuff. I think the other part is to understand what a small fraction of our general fund and our total budget that the property tax is, but there is an essential part to making sure that Chief Rivas and his staff have a pension, and Chief Stapleton and his staff have a pension, and that is a large portion of that.
And absolutely, and I think that discussion is not necessarily unwarranted during that whole discussion also.
Yeah.
A nice pie chart would help all of us.
Okay, any other questions? Trustee Kozar.
So Manager Harlan, I appreciate you getting back to me with all my questions on the budget. I like seeing that more money is going into sidewalks, because I know that's a problem. I think that Director Guerrero had said that regardless of the amount of money that's in the budget, the size of our staff and our capability only allows us to do about, I think you said 60 more trees or thereabouts. So next year, as we start looking at the 2025 budget and that, I want to see how we can increase that moving forward, but it seems like we're maxed out on that, so at least we're maxed out on that, and that's okay. I want to remind everybody too that even though we passed this budget and we passed the budget for certain expenditures, as a board, we have a second bite at that apple, because when those expenditures actually come up and we have to approve them, that's when we can get down and mine down into the nitty-gritty of it and say, well, we want to spend money here, we don't want to spend money here, or maybe, there's dialogue out there that changes our minds for one project versus the other. One example of that is there's some money in the budget that's not a direct line item, but it's in there under engineering services for grade separation. That's a whole bunch of money that's going to be spent. That's going to be a big conversation once it comes up. The idea of having quarterly budget reviews, I think in any corporation, you would have something like that, where on a quarterly basis, we sit down as the board and the population at large, and we say, okay, this is how much money we've taken in this quarter, this is how much money we've spent, we're on track, we're off track, we're good here, we're not good here, so that will also build the dialogue of budget. So when we come into Q4, fourth quarter, and we're making the budget for next year, we've had all these smaller conversations along the way. And maybe we've talked about the tax levy along the way more. Certainly, I've learned more in this meeting than all the times that I've reached out on that tax levy combined. And I don't want that to happen again. So quarterly budget reviews, it's appropriate in the corporate world, it's appropriate in our world here as government. When is our comprehensive plan due to be done? Because that kind of ties into our budget as well. Do we have just like a rough estimate on that? Can anybody answer that?
I think they said March.
So I'll let Director McLaughlin kind of look through that, but I think one of the things I want to make clear here is that the comprehensive plan is for land use, and it's a 15 to 20-year plan on how things will develop. The strategic plan, which we have, and I would like to use, if we can, one of my things in the manager's notes was to talk about Corey Porch-Platch would like to have the February COW, which is to talk about the existing state of projects. And one of the things that I want to look at is we have the 2014 referendum and where we are on that and how far we're going to get before we run out of money. And it's not all the way done. I mean, we're not going to get everything done. We need to bring these facts and figures to you. That is the strategic plan, which I think two of you have been on a previous strategic plan. I was talking to Trustee Patrick about this, and it was in his very first year, and it wasn't, the impact that had was not as great as if we all get together and talk about the strategic plan, which is more about here are our infrastructure needs, here are our community dialogue about that. One of the first parts is both surveys and focus groups towards that. So that process for the 2025 budget, which I wanted to work on for this year, but I simply didn't get it done, would start in February. So we could get a better, slower, more deliberate process. So, I mean, one of the first thing I was able to do is do the fall workshop where you get at least a little better understanding of this year's spending. So that is one of those pieces. And the other part is doing the quarterly financial report, which we have not been doing, and I'm aware of that. One of the things that we really think will help a lot is the implementation of the ERP system that we are in the early stages, but that's going to take some time, so that is not the entire answer. That's an answer for 25, 26, but it's not going to help much in 24.
Okay.
I'm sorry, did I answer your question?
Well, to some degree, I mean, you talked about the strategic plan, and we're going to kind of focus in on that coming February.
Yeah.
Okay, and then comprehensive plan?
Yeah, the comp plan is on track to be completed in approximately 11 to 12 months from now. That's when you'll be voting on it. So there's a whole bunch of meat that happens before that. You'll see some stuff, but the actual completed document, which you'll approve by resolution, is about a year from now.
Okay. So I also want to commend all the staff putting this all together. I mean, this is a giant budget, and there's so much into it. Manager Harline, this is your first full budget from start to finish for a full year. I think you've done a good job. You've always been available, as has everybody else on staff been available with answering questions same day, sometimes same hour, so I really appreciate that. Everybody's very knowledgeable, and when they don't have an answer, they just say, well, let me figure it out and I'll get back to you. And it happens quickly. So thank you for doing that. And thank you, just generally for putting this all together. So those are my comments on the budget.
Trustee Patrick.
Thank you. Just referring to Manager Harline and the previous strategic planning meeting that did occur, the Grecos were kind enough to host it at the Odeum when the Odeum was there, and this is quite a while ago under the previous administration. However, it was more of a team-building exercise in a conference room at the Odeum. There are about 3 people from the public present, and it was more or less what did the current board, what were their top 5 needs and wants. So I'm hoping that moving forward with the strategic planning meeting that we're hosting, that's a little bit more, well, hopefully a lot more in depth than that was. I definitely think that there needs to be an opportunity for our community to attend, maybe more than just one meeting, have multiple dates, so that way they could give their input as well. I don't think it necessarily has to be a team-building exercise, more or less a conversation of the direction that Villa Park is going to be headed in the next 10 to 20 years.
Okay. Okay, any other questions on the budget? Okay, Clerk Kornecki.
Trustee Cordova?
Yes.
Trustee Corkery?
Yes.
Trustee Kozar?
Yes.
Trustee Kumar?
Yes.
Trustee Alfano?
Yes.
Trustee Patrick?
Yes.
President Casone.
Yes. Item 12F is an ordinance authorizing the conveyance of certain vacated real property via quitclaim deed in accordance with ordinance numbers 4100 and 4359. Manager Harlan.
This resolution completes all the actions necessary by the Board of Trustees to convey an alley parallel to Ardmore Avenue between Adams and Jackson Street. These properties have been previously declared surplus by the village and platted into parcels to allow conveyance to the joining property owners. This would complete the end of a 5-year saga. Some of them have paid previously, and staff heartily recommends approval of the ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have a motion for the ordinance? Trustee Kumar,
I'll make that motion.
do we have a second? Trustee Kozar? Okay, questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Clerk Kornecki.
Trustee Alfano?
Yes.
Trustee Patrick?
Yes.
Trustee Cordova?
Yes.
Trustee Kumar?
Yes.
Trustee Corkery?
Yes.
Trustee Kozar?
Yes.
President Casone.
Yes. Okay, we're going on to item 13A is a resolution of the Village of Villa Park regarding the review of closed session minutes. Manager Harline.
The staff recommends approval of the resolution, which follows up on the discussion that we had in closed session about the approval of, or not approval of, opening any closed meeting records.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have a motion on the resolution? Trustee Kumar? We have a second. Trustee Patrick? Questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Clerk Kornecki.
Trustee Corkery?
Yes.
Trustee Alfano?
Yes.
Trustee Cordova?
Yes.
Trustee Kumar?
Yes.
Trustee Patrick?
Yes.
Trustee Kozar?
Yes.
President Casone.
Yes. Okay, item 14, old business. I don't believe we have any.
I do.
Oh, Trustee Patrick.
Thank you. So at our last committee of the whole meeting, we talked about how we could start better utilizing our commissions. And one of the topics that was brought up was specifically around our YouTube channels, our YouTube channel. And I have a couple of suggestions that I would like to recommend. And then if possible, maybe get a consensus from the board of whether or not this is something that they would like to see done as well. But these are simple edits that we could be done. First of all, new thumbnail icons and title slides. And what I mean by that is basically color coding them somehow or differentiating them from each other. I would like for each commission to have their own assigned playlist under the YouTube channel of the village. So each commission would have their own playlist. If you go to our YouTube channel right now, you go to playlists, there are, I want to say there's about 8 or 9 different types of playlists with different commissions on there. But I would like to see each commission have their own playlist under that YouTube channel. Also, we are audio recording every commission meeting now too. It would not be hard for us to upload that audio file or create a video with just a still image, so that way the public can listen to those audio versions as well. But I would like to see those also uploaded to the appropriate playlists under each commission under that as well. And we also talked about the hyperlinks to recent news events and/or how that could connect specifically with an agenda. And I'd like to see some of those hyperlinks added into some of those videos too. And again, these are not difficult changes. I think the hardest part might be with our backlog of audio recordings right now is creating a video out of that and putting them up on YouTube. But there shouldn't be that many, being that we just started this. But moving forward, I think the YouTube channel should be utilized where each commission has its own playlist. We color code each commission so that way when you go to our YouTube channel, it's not the same color face that you're looking at. People can get accustomed to seeing what they're looking for based on the colors. It makes it a little bit easier. But that's all I'd like. I'd like to see if possible, the board would be interested in exploring that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we actually took most of the suggestions from last board meeting. They're already in their own playlist. If you go to the playlist, they are individual. We added all the content that you wanted. We're working with Glenn on having a drop-in for links going back to the pages. And we can certainly work with him on color coding to make it a little more identifiable. That's an easy fix.
Yep.
But all of that information that you provided last time is corrected. We did investigate a while ago on uploading the audio files. We cannot do that on YouTube with the current audio files that we have. So they are actually available on the website. If you go to the individual commission pages, we have them all archived based on what has been submitted by those commissions.
So my question to you is, why can't those be uploaded to YouTube?
So I don't want to, I'm not, the IT person, but I can say that the file that we are using, I believe it's MP3, and they require a certain type of file that we do not currently use, the method for which we are using to record. We can certainly investigate, but we do have them available on the website, which is what the board directed us to do.
So as far as a simple audio file, regardless of your format, that can be changed, and all you have to do is create a video. And how you create a video is basically by uploading a single image through, whether that be Adobe Premiere or any of your editing software.
We don't have Adobe Premiere.
Well,
So
they make simple,
So that
they
would-
make simple
So I can
video
tell you
editing
that.
softwares out there that are free.
Right, so we can certainly look at that. I'm
That
just
would
saying
simply
we
be
did
a
make them
picture
publicly
on there
available. So
with
if
the
board
audio
would like
file
that,
being transferred
Yeah.
to one that is acceptable.
What's it?
We can certainly,
that's- okay.
yeah.
They'll have
I'm
to
just
look
saying
at
that
that.
So what
they
I'm-
are publicly available.
What I understand that, but it's not a hard process. The biggest thing here, though, is that our residents are having a hard time navigating YouTube.
Certainly.
Color is easy. Color is easy. This is all easy thumbnails.
We were responsive to all of your requests, and we'd be happy to make
I
those color
understand that. I
coded.
talked with Glenn today as too, right before this meeting, to talk about how some of these are easy solutions to implement. So I appreciate the work that you're doing right now, moving forward with this, but that's all we're looking for. We're looking
Right.
for it to be easier
More than
to
happy to
accessible
comply
than
with
it
that.
has been.
Certainly, which we did based on the feedback that we received last time.
So every commission right now has their own playlist.
The commissions, yeah, they are, if you go to the YouTube page, and we also reformatted the main page to make it a little more accessible. So it says, village board meetings and then boards and commissions. But if you go to playlist, each board and commission has their own playlist.
So all we have to do now is upload the audio
I
recordings.
looked at it right before I came, so yes.
Okay, so
You-
that's.
So we
We
can
could
certainly
actually
investigate
probably
that, but
bring it
they
up.
are available.
We could probably bring it up on the thing if you wanted to see.
No, that's okay.
That's right.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, we're good.
It's the most, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It's the most visited website in the world if
The Village of Villa Park's website, YouTube channel is the most visited YouTube channel.
It's a website. It's a website, right? YouTube.com. I don't know, right? And it's about as self-explanatory as it is. I saw the changes you made.
Yeah.
Even before you made the changes, they were playlists. That's how I go and look at the other commissions. So this is about as good as it gets.
We always try and take the feedback. I mean, you guys give us feedback regarding our communications. We implement it the next day. Like, it's a very simple thing. We're always willing to hear what you're hearing and if we can make improvements. You know, that's really no issue. We're more than happy to do those things.
Okay, so then my last request then is, when will we be able to have the discussion about getting the audio files uploaded to YouTube?
Why don't you talk to Glenn? I mean, Glenn would be.
So
the guy,
I'll
yeah.
talk to our IT again. They investigated it and we looked into that. And again, like I said, we made them publicly available. We'll certainly look into it again and I will report back to you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Trustee Kumar.
Just a quick comment on that. I think we need a junior commissioner. That would be a great job for them, to kind of just put that picture and get that in and get those audio files ready for display. I think that's a great start. That's something they do in seconds, and that I would suggest as adding to your docket. It does not, all work does not have to be done completely by staff, and we don't need to make it cumbersome. We can try to avail ourselves with other resources we may have in the future.
Trustee Kozar.
So we're making really good progress. A year ago, we didn't have certain commissions that were being recorded. Now we do. We didn't have things up on the YouTube channel and on our own website. Now we do. So we're coming along. Villa Park's a work in progress, and we will be, always. But I'm encouraged that we are making steps, and we are trying to get more transparent. We are trying to make this material available for everybody. Along those lines, to kind of dovetail into that, maybe this would be new business, but I would like to have a vote on all special meetings being recorded. So if there's ever a special meeting, we did a TIF one on like a Wednesday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Just as an example, I would like to see any special meeting that the village has, any public special meeting, to be at minimum audio recorded, at best to have it video recorded. So however we need to incorporate that into an agenda so we can all take a consensus or a vote on it.
Do we need to have that on an agenda, or can we do that?
As a consensus.
Is that just a direction to staff so it could be a consensus?
It can be done via consensus, and the village manager will implement that and ensure that that is implemented, unless the board would require, the board itself could require the formal vote. But if the board is satisfied with a consensus, and the manager will make sure it's implemented.
And so, I mean, we're willing to do that, but I think it would be important to every special meeting, we want to follow the direction of the Board of Trustees. I think it would be useful to define what every special meeting means. For instance, if like the other day, the Environmental Concerns Commission hosted a meeting at the library with, in cooperation with ComEd. It really wasn't just the Environmental Concerns Commission's meeting, but I think we need to, it could be, I want to make sure we understand what the definitions and what the boundaries of special meeting means.
Well, my definition would be any public meeting that fits outside the normal course of business. Simple as that. So, for example, you said the Environmental Commission had a meeting with ComEd at the library. So just record the audio of that. That might be something very interesting and very useful to listen to. I don't know if it was or not, but that's it. I mean, it doesn't have to be video, just some way that it's accessible. If I'm not able to make a meeting at 8 o'clock on a Thursday, or there's, something at the library or whatever, if it's a public meeting, there should be some record of it besides just dictation and minutes of the meeting. That's what I'd like to see. Or that's what I'd like to hear.
Well, we can do that. We can ask for a consensus on that. I think we'd have to really, something like a just a demonstration. I think what you're talking about is an ECC when it was more of a informational meeting. So it wasn't, it wasn't an actual meeting of the commission. And I don't know if it's necessary to record those, but if it's a special meeting that's called, that has to be notified, the 48-hour notice, I think that's okay. I think if we keep it at that, we'd be good.
That would be the kind of boundary I'm looking at, because I don't even know if that was, I don't think it was a posted meeting because it was just, their name was as a sponsor, so.
Okay. We have a consensus, Clerk Connect? Sure.
No.
Okay.
Can we reword what we're saying yes to? Because I think I agree with you on the 48-hour notice meeting, so can we just
Yeah, if it's a
say that
special
again?
meeting that has to be posted,
Yeah, the special meeting is actually defined in the Open Meetings Act, and all public bodies are bound by the Open Meetings Act. So if they're posting if they're holding a meeting, if it's not their regularly scheduled meeting, it's defined as a special meeting. You have to post an agenda, you have to do it before 48 hours, and there is a specific definition. So those meetings that fall under the Open Meetings Act would then either be regular or special meetings, and they would be subject to the recording requirement.
Perfect.
yeah. Okay. Everybody good with that? Okay, Clerk Connect.
Okay, trustee Alfano,
Yes.
trustee Kumar,
Yes.
trustee Cordova,
Yes.
trustee Corkery.
Yes.
Trustee Kozar.
Yes.
Trustee Patrick.
Yes.
President Kazone.
Yes. Okay. Okay, we have any new business? Trustee Alfano.
This was still just kind of an old business kind of follow-up for
Sure.
something that trustee Patrick had said when we were talking about just YouTube and technology in general. I had mentioned a couple of meetings back about utilizing perhaps the library for those residents who are having difficulty specifically with our webpage, but just in general, those are places that our residents, I assume, can go to find ways that they can get help using phones as well. I know we have some people from the library in the audience today, just so that I know that YouTube, it looks different on every device. So if you're having trouble finding what you're looking for, that is definitely a place to go to. And I don't know if we've reached out for help with the
Library
website, but
does that with all
Everything
certain,
is
job
definitely
applications and just about any access to the website. And so, I mean, that is a good advice generally to the public. They are an excellent resource if you're having trouble finding stuff online.
thank you.
Okay. Trustee Patrick.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Economic Development Commission, the EDC, investigate or advise the board about new and trending businesses that are emerging in our town and nationally even, and how and if any of those types of businesses might be a good fit for Villa Park. So I'm looking just for a general investigation to advise the board on about all the different types of new and trending businesses that are emerging, again, in our area as well as nationally, and whether or not any of those might be a good fit in Villa Park.
Okay.
You're the liaison, I didn't know if you.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. You got your walking orders.
Well, I would prefer if that's a direction to one of the commissions. It would be better is that a motion for consensus?
More of a recommendation, I would think. Yeah.
Is it but I want to make sure it's a recommendation of the commission, of the board.
Okay.
And that we do that to be transparent, to have that on the record.
Right.
So,
Okay,
right, so it's proper to take a consensus then on trustee Patrick's recommendation.
I have just clarifying question.
Sure, go ahead.
Do we need to kind of figure out what the scope is? Like, are you looking for a trend report on upcoming open business, or you just said it's cool?
Trending businesses in the United States, in the area. For example, like the one that we have
The captain's room.
the Captain's Room opening up on Villa Avenue. There are more and more of these types of businesses that are opening up that are appealing to people. Some of them cater to or has specific types of events or whatnot. But I'm not just limiting the scope to just that type of catering business or banquet hall business. I'd like for the commission to just open up and explore on anything that might be relevant to Villa Park, that they might be able to come back with an example and say, here are some new and upcoming businesses or trends that have been popular that we might want to try to attract to Villa Park.
Yeah, Trustee Kumar.
As a liaison, I have to say, we have been having that discussion kind of consistently over time. I think what Trustee Patrick is saying, put it on paper, bring it to us, the consistent discussion.
Yeah, because
so
that's the
everybody has it.
EDC, the goal of
I
EDC is
understand
to do that.
Yeah, that discussion has been going on, and you're absolutely right. We do need to kind of materialize that into some kind of document, so that document sits with us for our future planning. So I'm not in disagreement. I just think it's a good point you brought up.
So yeah, to reiterate off of that, I have been also in contact with the chairman of the commission, talking about some of those discussions that have been being had. And in my previous attempts to talk about empowering our commissions, I'm trying to take the directive to actually give them something to move forward with, coming back to us, something of interest to them and to us.
And I would like to piggyback off of that and have a discussion also about parking that we need to have in one of our cows, in how we are going to address the parking issue at hand, given our rules and so on and so forth. And I will ask that those who have had issues attend those meetings. That cow is open to everyone. I do want businesses in town to bring their complaints, their issues to us, so we actually know what's going on. So that's what I'm asking. Not asking it go through EDC at this point. What I'm asking is that we have a cow on that to bring the general business world at large to a meeting for that reason.
So I'll answer the last question first and then go back to the EDC comment.
Yeah.
A full cow presentation to dive into the entire parking report is going to be scheduled once it's documented.
Okay.
You'll have an entire meeting to dive into it. Actually, it'll technically be two, because it's Villa Avenue and Ardmore Avenue, so it's actually two reports that we did together simultaneously.
Well, it's
So-
not only the report we're looking for, because the report is telling us what the parking study found on a particular date, time, and kind of a scan. So that's good. I'm not saying it's not, but it's also perception, and we need to know each business is, as you said, a particular business might want all their people to park across the street. Another business may be willing to valet. We need to kind of come up with those solutions overall for those areas. Not only that this is enough parking, it's fine, it should be fine, as long as you park 2 miles off. Because from a business perspective, as a business, a business owner, obviously, the incentive is that you make it easy for your customer, you make your money. So we need to also think, cognizant about that issue. So, yeah.
The parking study is part report, it is also part planning document. It will have recommendations and goals and objectives in it to accomplish the things that are perceived out there.
Okay.
It'll be a full standalone document that may end up actually being an appendix to the comp plan.
And if I may, real quick, that's a good time for people, that gives you a, something to crystallize the discussion around.
Okay.
So,
That's
Good.
fine. That's
So,
fine.
back to the EDC. The EDC doesn't have that data. So what the conversation that has at the EDC is mostly hearsay. It's, oh, I saw this business, they look like they're doing well. They don't actually have concrete, real data on what businesses are coming in and out and everything. That's held by staff. We have that data. The EDC, that's not what they do. And then on a national level, I don't even have that data. We would actually have to hire out that data and acquire it.
So what we need to start doing is allowing our commissions to think for themselves. I understand your point of view and what they're saying, but we do have to empower them to go out and try looking for this. It's not impossible to find the research that you're talking about. It's just you're restricted by other work duties and other things like that. This is one of the points about why we have commissions and why they're important to us, is because they could take on tasks that maybe you can't. However, that cohesion, that cooperation between staff and our commissions acts as a tool. You could give them the resources to help them investigate some of these things. But it's not hard to figure out certain trends or areas that are popping up like this, just even based on what you see. So what I'm trying to do here is that this is not going to be a one-meeting thing. I think this should be an ongoing topic of discussion that allows them to think for themselves, to report back to us, because that is their job. I mean, according to our code, these commissions are, advisory commissions to the village president and the board. I'm not saying that they should not listen to staff, but I think that there needs to be that partnership there, and these are the discussions that they want to be having. So,
Sure. Actually, part of our plan for the new year is to actually figure out what EDC is going to be doing. Previously, staff liaisons, they met infrequently. There wasn't real direction. We're trying to figure out what they should be doing and how they can move forward with that conversation.
and with that being said, I think it's very important that we understand that as well, is that we as a board have to give them direction. The direction should not be coming from staff. Staff should be giving support, not direction. The board should be given direction.
So, yeah, the trend, that's me pulling a report that takes 14 seconds. I can pull all the businesses that came in last year, what they do they have a license, I can pull that data. I can't actually have the EDC pull that data because it's our software, they don't have access. National, if we want to go, hey, let's look at trends in the national or the regional or the Midwest or the 5 states, they would then go and interview consultants, figure out who's the guy we want to go with, and latch onto their data. Everybody's data is different. That's a beautiful thing about data. But if we want to do that, we need a budget for that, give them some more funds, actually make that happen. The local stuff, we can pull it and they can talk about it.
And-
This is going great, this business looks like they're doing well, but
I think that's a great idea, in that we need to consider what type of budgeting that we would in the following year, previous years, that would allow them to do something like that. And that is a discussion topic related right back to commissions.
Sure.
And that goes hand in hand with strategic planning and everything else. But I still, at the end of the day, think it's important that they start having those discussions, so that way they could start mapping out the tools, the resources that they need to actually get some of this data. But again, I'm going back to what I'm being told, is that they're having some of these conversations and they want more to do, and they want to talk about some of these things.
yes.
How easy is it to get that data?
Say it again?
How easy is it to get that trending data?
The local level?
Yeah.
Easy.
But, I mean, not just ours, just,
Well,
Yeah.
I have direct access to the local
Yep.
Villa Park data, because it's
The Villa
our
Park,
data.
right.
We actually created it. When someone comes in for a certificate of occupancy application, then that gets tracked, address, what the business is, the zoning district, all that stuff, right? And then I can add, do they have a liquor license, because I can take my 2 data sets,
okay.
and then here we go. It's our data, so.
Okay.
The other stuff is not ours. We'd have to go to usually a corporate agency, a commercial firm, and pay for it.
Okay.
Which Villa Park has done a long time ago, but they have done that in the past. It's
Trustee
not
Kumar.
recent data, though.
Let's see.
I would suggest you get us that data as a group, and we have a discussion about what's going on, at least in Villa Park. If it's that easily to pull,
Yeah,
we
I can
should
pull.
definitely do that and have our discussion there. I also would like, if you can pull also the types of licenses that are gotten in terms of liquor licenses and stuff by these businesses, that also would tell us what the trends on those different categories are.
Yeah.
Because as we go to set the different categories, and it will be nice if they could weigh in as the development commission of Villa Park. So,
Okay, all right, so we're going to get consensus on having the EDC look at and
Yeah.
giving us a report to the board on trends and that.
If I could I went to a recent ADC meeting, and one of the things that they are doing is they're getting narratives from the existing businesses not a stay, that's for a,
Retention?
Thank you, retention visits, and I think they're getting some interesting narrative data that way, which is something that you can't necessarily get from a survey. So I think that would be valuable information. I don't know if that informs this process or if you want to do this in addition to that. But I mean, I think that that's a piece that they're already working on. And one of the things one way to empower commission is to take what they're already doing and encourage them to continue it where it's been successful. But that is a strategy issue, and that is your bailiwick, not mine. So with that, I pass.
Trustee Kumar, let's see.
I think one piece is a report from the village staff to us to look at. The second piece is a report from the commission to us. So they're two different things. You can do both and have no issues.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think either one gives, like, as they go to visit these businesses, if they have this information, it's also what they're thinking about. A new business is coming in town. It's, some connection makes it happen. They, just this discussion, we have been this supportive. We have done this. We are interested in these kind of ideas. It doesn't hurt. It all works by, networking and connection, so that.
Okay, all right, let's do the consensus. Clerk Konecki?
Okay. Trustee Cordova.
Yes.
Trustee Alfano.
Yes.
Trustee Patrick.
Yes.
Trustee Kumar.
Yes.
Trustee Corkery.
Yes.
Trustee Kozar.
Yes.
President Kazone.
Yes, okay. With that, we'll go to Village Commission reports. I believe we have none. Village Clerk's report.
I wanted to mention that I want to commend the students who were part of that It's a Wonderful Life presentation that we had advertised. We saw that online. They did a great job. I just wanted to give them some of them were from Willowbrook Drama Club or Drama Department, and excellent job. And then tomorrow, just want to remind seniors that SALT meeting is tomorrow at Iowa Community Center at 11 a.m.
Okay, thank you. Okay, move on to trustees report. We're starting on my left. Trustee Alfano.
Yes, thank you. You only have a few more hours left to put in your submission for the Fun Commission's Holiday House. There are two categories, joyful and traditional. You can submit online on their Facebook page. They are going to start driving around tomorrow to take a look at those houses and make some decisions. So good luck, and I hope everybody has a safe and pleasant holiday.
Thank you. Trustee Kumar.
I just want to wish everybody a great holiday season. I hope everybody has a safe holiday, and that you enjoy your time with your friends, family, and wherever and whenever you wish to spend it. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Corkery.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, et cetera, et cetera.
Hey, Trustee Patrick.
Thank you. I'd just like to give another shout out to the Villa Park Junior Warriors 8th grade bronze basketball team. They won another game over the weekend, so congratulations on that. But lastly, happy holidays, everybody. Be safe out there. I know we're not really expecting horrible weather right now, but we never know this time of year when that's going to come. So I'm asking that you be safe. Please don't park in fire lanes or emergency lanes. And if it does snow, remind yourself to clear away those fire hydrants outside on the streets, so that way it makes our response times a little bit faster, a little bit safer to respond to emergencies. And thank you all for what you're doing out there. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Cordova.
Yeah, just two items. Number one, with the talk of committee boards and commissions, I do want to remind people that we have 11 committees or commissions in Villa Park. 7 of them have openings. 6 of them have 1 opening. 1 of them has 3. So we have some vacancies that we can fill. Go through. There's places on the website that you can find these, and tells you who to talk to and how many vacancies there are. So that's number one. Second piece is next week on the 25th is Christmas. The 26th Kwanzaa begins. There are a lot of families out here. It's going to be cold, and we have issues sometimes. So just want to shout out to the local food pantries. I'm going to list them all just so it's on. First one, Villa Park, we have Christ Covenant Church, Salvation Army in Oakbrook Terrace, the Outreach House in Lombard, People's Resource Center in Westmont and Wheaton, Disciples Food Pantry at the Christian Church of Villa Park, St. Vincent de Paul Society Food Pantry in Lombard, York Township Food Pantry, the Food Distribution Center in Lombard, Elmhurst Yorktown Food Pantry in Elmhurst, and the Addison Township Foundation Food Pantry in Addison. These are all found on the website, and I hope that everyone has a happy and healthy holiday coming up. So,
Thank you. And those websites are listed on, those food pantries are listed on our website too, if anyone wants to go to those. Just go there.
Wishing everybody a happy holiday season. We've completed another year, or just about, here in our village, and I think we're really making progress. I think we're doing a lot of good things here in the village. I think staff is working hard and has had a lot of good accomplishments this year. I like the direction of where Villa Park's going. I've been on the board for a couple years now, and every year it keeps getting better. We've certainly got more work to do, which we always will have more work to do because we always want to improve. But I like the trajectory of it, and I like the direction that we're going. So thank you, everybody that has played a role in that and played a part in that. Keep up the good work, and looking forward to next year.
Okay. Hey, Village President's Report. Not too much. It hasn't already been said. Our coffee with the board in January will be on January 6th. You know, we don't meet again until January 8th as a board, so coffee with the board will probably be held January 6th. I think it's late enough past New Year's so that we can have that. With winter coming, again, I know it's been talked about, just be careful out there when snow comes. Watch out for plow trucks, and watch out for your neighbors if they need their sidewalk shoveled, and if they're elderly, give them a hand. And obviously, Merry Christmas to everyone, Happy Holidays, have a safe and happy holiday season and a great new year. And we'll go to our village manager's report.
Just a couple of items. One of the things that I had in my notes when we talked about the budget, but I wanted to make sure it was clear, all funds requested by all the commissions were approved and put in the budget, so there's a couple that wanted a little bit more money, and that's in there. So the other thing is that, so I will send out some topics for COW meetings. What I was hoping to do at the next COW meeting in January, but we can substitute one of the other topics, is a discussion about the golf course. In February, the COW meeting, I would really like to review current data in preparation for the Saturday, February 24th strategic planning day-long workshop. So unless there is that would be at your regular COW meeting on February 12th, which is a 6 p.m. start. The January one, I'll take input, but at some point I understood the board would like to talk about where we are at with the golf course and where we are headed and some of those items. And the earlier we get started in the year, like anything, but we can substitute another topic for that. There is a public hearing scheduled for January 8th. We have typically in the past done those at 6:45. We announced it as 7 o'clock, so that is the public hearing scheduled for the public to come and talk about the tax incremental financing district that we are trying to start at the St. Charles Commercial Corridor. Just want to make sure if anyone is watching or reviewing these, that will be at 7 o'clock. That is a chance to come in and talk about that. We already have held the Joint Review Board, which is a public meeting where public is invited, but is designed for the each taxing authority affected by a TIF, school district, library, township, et cetera, and one member for the public at large to make a recommendation as to whether to move forward with a TIF district. That has taken place, as has been pointed out, there was that leads up to the public hearing, which is open and public is encouraged. I just wanted to say thank you, and I was going to write a little something, but it's pretty late. Just thank you to the staff for the work you guys do every day, and not just the department heads who are here, but the staff back in in your various departments. I had a chance to make a couple of the Christmas celebrations, missed several, but I think that's one of the things we've been trying to do is to create a much better environment for work. And I cannot do any of this without the support of the board, and I appreciate the support we've gotten and the kind words you said about the staff. I assure you that we've got an excellent staff, and I think we keep getting better with better hires and a sense of creating a culture here, which is a good place to work. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. Wouldn't want to be doing anything else in the world.
Good, thank you. Just, actually, piggybacking on that too, we had a neighborhood party last night, and several of the neighbors were just commenting on staff, that every time they've had a dealing with them, that it's been very pleasant. Staff is always very pleasant with them and always gives them answers, and we do have one of the best staff around, starting with the directors and working down all the way, so thank you to everybody. Okay, we have no executive session. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Everybody wants to stay, huh? Okay, all right. Trustee Kozar, do we have a second? Okay, Trustee Alfano, all in favor? Aye. Aye, okay. You guys have a very happy holiday season, and see you next year.